to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try enforcing some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
It is patch 7.4 on this week's Trinity Force Podcast as we roll into episode number 421. My name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell, joined by Serial, Dom, and Todd. Actually, because I've got Serial, Dom, and Todd, not Serial, Dom, Nom, Nom.
Real quality audio.
Humorously.
No, that was so good because I think what we could do post is we could take it's patch 7.4 on episode blah 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 and have that cut, and then the intro music starts, and then we start talking like around now, and your goof is just completely gone.
Yeah, love it when my editor takes care of my goofs, because I can never intro a podcast correctly because I've been trying not to intro the podcast the same way for many months now.
Oh, it was great. It was great up until the point where you decided to start pointing, like people can hear where you're pointing.
People can see. If you go to youtube.com/TForce Podcast, you can see our lovely faces. You can put a face to the voice, except for Moon, who doesn't have a face right now. He is still Garen.
He's literally faceless. He does not have a face. We are looking at trying to get him one. Guys, please donate so that we can get him a face.
I actually am thinking about going with a mask maybe instead of a face. I think that might be just take the next step.
Who is the guy?
Disguised Toast kind of route?
Well, Disguised Toast doesn't even wear a mask anymore when he streams.
Well, yeah, because he got outed essentially.
There's another
when
guy.
I finally do get my webcam, I'm just going to have a mannequin and I'm going to decorate it and you won't even know.
Thank God.
Hey, ventriloquism maybe? Ventriloquism would be great for a podcast, right?
I don't. I think it'd be awful. Like,
it would be horrifying. So it would bother us more than anybody else. Hey, I thought we had a lot to cover today.
We do, and I'm trying to get to it, but you keep talking.
No, you're not.
We've got a lot of stuff to cover on patch 7.4. You may look at these patch notes if you're at home and or wherever you may be looking at them at and think, well, this isn't that big of a patch. But I disagree quite wholeheartedly in the fact that there are a lot of small changes that equal out to be one big heap of change going to 7.4. And also we are headed toward the mid-season update here in the next couple months, and that's going to be even a bigger change with everything else. So we're just going to start at the top of the list, jump right into League of Legends discussion, and talk about the turret first blood, first brick that has been changed in this patch. So so instead of granting so much global gold, it grants more local gold, essentially. So your local bonus is now up to 300 gold, and no longer grants 25 gold to all teammates, and the total bonus is down to 300 gold total. They're trying, their little snippet when they did this was to try to force players to stop dogpiling bot to get that turret, 4-man dogpiling bot.
I just don't know if that actually gets because the only person in maybe the mid laner, but otherwise like the only person losing out is the top laner. If the top laner
4 people
teleport.
go bot lane, 4 people are sharing that gold still.
Yeah,
but I guess what you will see is like maybe it cuts back on snowballing. Instead of 5 people sharing 400, it's 4 people sharing 300, which is a slightly smaller share for those 4 people. So maybe it reduces the impact of it a little bit if they still send 4 bottom.
I would love to see some solo queue statistics that like gave correlation numbers. You know, first turret turned into wins with this type, or team that took first turret won with this type of frequency.
I actually did see something recently, and it was like north of 70% first tower equaling a win.
It's clearly a big deal.
I'm
not talking pro.
Oh God.
No,
it's like
I think
70% is. I think that you could see that like on, and I hate to like throw the pro scene into this. The pro scene would be a way better like indication of how actually important it is, because a team being ahead in solo queue is way more likely to win like early if they're ahead early than a team in like the pro scene.
Well,
like,
see, I'd like to point out that a solo queue team, and no matter if there's gold involved or not, taking the first dragon, taking the first objective on the map is more likely to win than a team not taking it. Like, that's just a statistic that's been out there forever. So this gold, while it does have an impact, I don't believe that this is going to have a giant impact on the solo queue scene.
I certainly don't feel like it changes the dogpile bot lane.
No.
No, it's still good. It's just not as good.
It's the easiest lane to dogpile and gank at this point. Like,
It looks like the solo lanes will snowball a tiny bit harder if a solo lane ever gets the first turret, and which doesn't happen mid very often, but it happens top lane fairly frequently. So that could snowball the top lane matchups a little bit harder, and while simultaneously not affecting bot lane very much.
Well, let's talk about experience. Teamwork bonus experience. So there has been some bonuses in the game for a while now with minions based on overall level. Like, wasn't it like if your team level is higher, your minions are stronger?
Yeah, average team level affected minions just in general of taking damage and dealing damage, and it was a snowball effect. It wasn't a rubber band effect.
Right. So they're adding more of a rubber band effect in the game. So earning a killer assist while below your team's average level now grants bonus experience. Teamwork bonus experience kicks in at just over 1 full level behind your team's average, scaling with XP. The bonus scales slightly more aggressively at first, capping at 60% bonus experience at 4 full levels difference.
This is interesting to me because this isn't like a rubber band in the sense that it's trying to help a team that is behind. It's helping somebody specifically on a team that is behind their team. It will, of course, if you're behind, like your team is behind, you catching up on levels obviously increases the average for your team and would help that minion thing we were just talking about. But this is just kind of, we had this happen, I think, when we played on Monday, where I ended up being a couple levels down despite being in mid. And I would have, I don't know how much this would have helped, but I would have been able to gain some extra experience from participating in kills to help me kind of catch up to my top laner who was ahead, or I think even jungler might have been ahead at that point too.
I mean, this obviously helps out supports more than anybody else because in most games, supports spend a percentage of their time away from lanes because they're putting wards somewhere or they're roaming to a different lane, and there's just a surprising amount of kind of ambient experience that they end up missing out on, and that's really why they end up falling behind. And Riot's been trying to do things that involve like interactive elements to boost up the experience there and everything, but ultimately it's just like, you know what, we need to figure out how to get the lower experienced champions a little bit more experience, because like there's nothing shittier than falling behind basically because you're doing your job properly.
I think they mentioned junglers as well in this, because you have a little trade-off when you go power farming to get experience versus going to gank, and it may not always work out. And junglers are, I think, the second most likely to fall behind, but supports are like far and away the most obvious candidate for benefiting from this. But I think junglers that maybe don't get that as much, but are still helping their team. Like if you get a bunch of flashes from the enemy team, but you don't ever get kills. Like you're like, well, I missed out on experience both in the jungle camps I could have been taking and on the kills. I think this will help a little bit with them too.
I think something it does, especially on the top side of the map, is like if a solo laner is ahead and is like split pushing down really hard, and which usually gives them a level advantage. If you end up dedicating a couple of people to shutting them down, their level advantage that they got for themselves by pushing really hard and just staying top is going to in turn give those people who invested resource to shut them down a bigger return. So it kind of nullifies the split push effectiveness a little bit, maybe. Depending on how easily you can fight the split pusher.
You would have to be behind your team's average level in order to get that benefit.
Well, no, there's also the next part of it is also bonus experience for kills assists on higher level champions.
Okay.
That's also becoming that's also being increased.
Okay, that one makes more sense. Sorry, I thought we
didn't mention that one yet, but that is actually called the underdog bonus experience. So it's for helping kill higher level.
Yeah, for sure.
Just trying to keep it's a whole thing to try to keep everybody more of an equal level and not have those big level disparities. And so we'll have to see how it plays out. That's more of like a solo queue change that might help a lot of you that are struggling in specific matchups or just struggling at any point in the game. When we say just learn to get carried, this might help you get back into the game and not have to get carried anymore, which is nice. It's nice, but at the same time it can easily be abused, or not abused, but like it can easily offset the lead the enemy team has, the snowball the enemy team has.
Yeah, what's funky to me a little bit, and I understand that there always has to be like a balance in this, is that they came out with the minion changes, which was obviously to help snowball a little bit. They had the First Blood turret. Now they're obviously toning back the First Blood turret thing, but now they're adding in rubber band effects to kind of bring the game. Like I know they always want to be changing the game, but in interesting ways. And my only concern with this, like Plants it has turned out to be very good. I think people had overestimated how poor they were going to be. My concern now is that just with us seeing champions like Camille who have a million lines of text, we are now going to have so many different things that you have to account for later on. Like this is something that nobody is going to know that didn't read patch notes. You're never going to be like, damn, I really got a bit more experience than I thought. It's just more stuff that is hard coded into the game to know that can help you if you know it. But like, good God, we are covering so many different things over the last year that I think it's just changed. I don't know how much it's actually changed the game, but there's so many more things to consider now.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the big change of this patch, and that would be the mastery changes that are coming in on top of the lethality changes. So before we jump into all the mastery changes, I want Serial to try to make the point that he was going to make before the podcast started, so we can have that conversation now.
Well, no. Well, okay. I think that there are three specifically that are covered here. Actually, I guess a fourth one too. There are three masteries that are all in the same tier in the ferocity tree. It's Bounty Hunter, Double-Edged Sword, and Battle Trance. They are the ones that give you percentage damage for each unique champion you've killed. That's going down from 1.5% to 1%. Double-Edged Sword was giving you 5%, taking 2.5 extra percent. It's going into 3 and 1.5, which I think it might have been a long time ago. And then Battle Trance ramps up over time. It ramps up still 1% per second, but only up to 3%. And I think that the change here is interesting because like they're trying to take away some of the max amount of percent damage you're able to get, but they're scaling it all down, which I think is not necessarily going to be I know Todd's going to like disagree with me on this. I don't think it's a huge change, but I think in the sense of makes one significantly better than the other, but they're just removing the raw power out of them. And I think that is a good change because there's a lot of percent damage that's coming into the game. Todd, feel free to just blast me here.
I mean, no, it's not quite like that, but the two things that I sort of see that stand out to me is when you look at how they got nerfed, the Bounty Hunter got the smallest nerf of the three, in my opinion, which makes it almost the best one to take now. It got nerfed by 33%, and it doesn't have any really drawback to it other than you have to get a kill on somebody on a unique champion once to get the bonus initially, but it got the smallest nerf, only being nerfed by 33%. When you look at Double-Edged Sword, it was nerfed by almost 50. And the bonus, and you know what I mean, you still have that drawback of the bonus damage taken, which also got a proportionately small change, like rather than getting a larger bonus damage taken off, maybe to offset it. See where it's like 5 and 2.5. It used to, I guess it's still 3 and 1.5.
Well, no, that is 40% exactly. It's a 40% nerf. It's not almost 50.
Well, okay.
And then you're getting a bonus of you take less damage now. So I think that's the numbers aren't exactly.
Well, the Bounty Hunter nerf is still 33%, so it's like a slightly smaller nerf.
I agree with that.
And then the other thing that's interesting to me though is that Battle Trance being reduced to 3 seconds in combat instead of 5 seconds opens it up to more characters.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Only having to be in second for 3 or being in combat for 3 seconds is as easy as getting a couple auto attacks off. Because
maybe you were always
already going to get that.
You were always going to get the 3%.
No,
being in
that's
inherently
worse.
No, everything is
inherently worse because in 3 seconds before you would already be at 3% with the potential to go higher.
No,
now you were capped.
Well, not
it's
really.
It's always going to be worse, of course. Like if it gets nerfed, it's worse. I mean, you can argue that for every day and every time, but like allowing it to only have to ramp up over 3 seconds rather than 5 opens it up for more people to potentially take it in a trade and lane, because not all trades last a total of 5 seconds, giving you that extra 2%. So that point that you would have taken could have potentially gone into Bounty Hunter or Double-Edged Sword instead. It just opens it up to allow more people to use it to trade, because no trade generally lasts 5 seconds unless you're playing Maokai and Nautilus in the top lane where you fucking smack each other with wet noodles, right? Like your trades were never enough time for you to ramp up and get enough damage off to do that.
The reason why I think it's different is because you still get 1% damage per second, so you would still get 3% after 3 seconds. But if you had taken Double-Edged Sword instead, you would have had that 5% all the time. And so the cap being at 3%, in the context of Double-Edged Sword also being capped at 3%, means that that 3-second window is more realistic for more characters.
Now, that I agree with.
Without giving up a higher potential percent damage in that same window. With a
That I
different
agree with a
mastery.
lot. That I agree with a lot. I did not like the argument at all that oh, it lets you get to it faster, because you would always get to that 3% point no matter what.
Okay, I can see that.
There you go. Todd said it better than I could. I still think you're taking Bounty Hunter. I mean, I like Battle Trance. I think Battle Trance is fine. Double-Edged Sword, I think you may be taking if you're a jungler. It's the same thing. It's the same reason you're taking Double-Edged Sword as previously, right? Like you don't take a lot of damage and whatnot. But these are all inherently giant nerfs to junglers over everything, because Double-Edged Bounty Hunter and Double-Edged Sword getting a decrease. You have a 30 to 50% increase or whatever it is, reduces the amount of damage that you're pulling off in a gank as any kind of jungler at any point in time.
I mean,
reducing their effectiveness out of the jungle.
Well, I think they're going to take Double-Edged Sword just because that still works on the jungle camps, whereas the other two don't.
Sure.
I mean, the Bounty Hunter presumably applies to jungle camps once you have stacks of it and everything, but Battle Trance never will.
Sure, but you're still losing 40% effective damage by...
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a nerf there, but I still think junglers are taking Double-Edged Sword because for what they're trying to do, it just helped them do it a little bit faster.
I think Bounty Hunter is probably the best one now, but you have to be a champion that gets kills to take it. And if you don't, then you're either picking a champ who's tanky and doesn't care about the 1.5%, or you're taking a champ who has in and out combat pattern and you're getting Battle Trance.
Yeah, I was taking Bounty Hunter on a lot of my AD carries because I figured I would get at least 3 kills a game, so that it would equal out for the rest of it. And there's not a lot of times you're in combat enough to get the 5%, because a lot of trades again were only happening between the mounts. And obviously you don't want to take Double-Edged Sword because it's too much extra damage to take in lane. So Bounty Hunter was just like the safest bet to walk in into any point in the game. And I'll probably still continuously take Bounty Hunter in most of my marksmen at this point.
I can see why some support players might think about taking Battle Trance, but the reality is that so much of your damage ends up coming up front that you're still better off taking Double-Edged Sword.
Yeah, I think that the top laners might be the only ones who would think Battle Trance and actually be kind of into it, just because they have, I would say, more consistent elongated trades. Corrupting Potion comes to mind a lot when you think of I want to be in combat for a good bit longer than normal because I have this item. I think that might be a bit more enticing if that wasn't already being taken on some people.
It honestly looks pretty attractive to me on Garen right now. Before, I felt I could never max it out, but now 3 seconds, it's short enough to where I feel like I can get it.
The only I guess once post 6, because your front loaded damage doesn't really get benefited from it too much, off of just if you run in queue now, it started the tick.
How long
you don't get anything up front.
How long do you spin for on Garen?
3 seconds exactly.
Okay, so you were having it.
It's really for the
your spin
ultimate.
Happened.
It'd be the
you
ultimate,
queue
I think,
and
really.
spin, and you've maxed out Battle Trance before the spin has stopped spinning.
Mm-hmm. So you always have cap for your ult. Whereas before, you couldn't do that reliably. So the other keystones were just better because you always had the full damage up front.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of breaks everything wide open for top lane. We skipped Fervor and Warlords.
Well, it's because Adam wanted me to talk about my little spiel here. Yeah, Warlords just got nerfed by 5% as maximum. 15% is now the max amount of lifesteal you can get from Warlords. And then Fervor, you get 2 extra seconds on your stacks, which is trying to bring that back into viability because it was still underused, but I think it was starting to see a lot more play. I keep seeing it on Warwick because Chiro has been playing Warwick a bunch and loves it on him.
Still loves it. All this does is just boost anybody who was building Fervor previously, but because of the way Fervor works, it doesn't really work that well in Marksman right now. So Bounty Hunter, it still ends up being the better mastery for those trades.
You mean
Warlords?
Or Warlords? Yeah, if I set them operative, you know what I meant.
Yeah. I think that'll bring it a little bit back into good call to check on if we're online or not. Cool. Yeah, I think that they're gonna have Warlords being just so consistently taken for a laning. It's weird because there's not a lot of Thunderlords is a good laning tool, but I feel like a lot of the long Storm Raiders isn't as much of a laning tool. It is useful, but it's for later bursting people much later. Whereas Warlords was kind of to maintain somebody through laning phase more than anything else. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they say they want to try to make things a little bit more interesting or get it so that the de facto one is always Bloodlust, and I just don't see this change accomplishing that.
Wait, so so you mean like they would always pick it?
Right now, most AD carries are taking Warlord's Bloodlust.
Yeah.
And they are trying to create a situation where for AD carries, the de facto response isn't always take Warlord's Bloodlust. You have calculated reasons for doing whatever, but I just don't think this change is big enough to actually accomplish that goal.
They have to change the way Fervor Battle works to force...
Or, for that matter, or maybe change the way Warlord's Bloodlust works and change it so that's no longer a lifesteal thing and it's something else.
Sure. No, you're still taking Warlords over anything else at the bottom lane, unless you're trying to like burst somebody down with potentially Thunderlords, right? But then you're missing out on a lot of extra percentage of penetration by doing that.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about I think what would make Fervor Battle really good, and they danced around this because they've switched. If it was auto attacks gave you more damage on hit versus skills could give you more AD, and I think the general consensus was if they ever made it so somehow auto attacks and skills could both give you AD as stacks, it would be crazy. They'd have to nerf it, but it would be very, very good. And the fact that they can't go that far means that it's kind of weird to try to bring it up to a power level that makes sense. And I think now that they've gone to a point where you get AD off of it, it has been working for more people. I think that change was very good. Maybe this, like, stacks lasting longer is kind of a hard thing to quantify in terms of, I know I want to pick this now. You kind of have to mess around with it and see how much that really helps you, because you have, like, stack durations is kind of an interesting just concept with something like a mastery that you might not think about as much as something like a champion's passive that you stack.
What I think is pretty interesting about the mastery is like 8 seconds is like almost too long. I think this is going to push the keystone like over the breaking point where it's going to be too good. I think this is like going to be the next big keystone. Like when you think about like ramping battle effects, like you think about like Jack's passive, or you think about like stacking passives that even take a while to build up, like Kennen or somebody like that. Like when Kennen stacks like fall off you, whatever. Like it's always like when the duration is like long enough to where they can trade, and then come back and trade again while the stacks are still up. Like that's always been the point where like things start breaking the game. And I think 8 seconds is pushing that point where like cooldowns are like 8 seconds. So like if you manage your auto attacks well, I think you can like max your stacks out, back off, and come back at full strength. And I think it's gonna warp matchups in the favor of people who have fervor over those who don't.
And this one's worrisome because it's really hard to tell, or you don't easily notice fervor of battle. Like most players don't. I'm sure you do, Todd, but I mean, like most players aren't going to notice. They're just going to suddenly be like, "Why am I getting hit like a goddamn truck? I wasn't getting hit by a truck 4 seconds ago. What happened?"
Yeah.
If you can't back out of fights and like for that to go away and everything, like you're just going to keep dying and or like getting hit really hard without fully realizing it.
Yeah, it's hard to track. And then there's even people who play the game, who play ranked every day, who don't even look at patch notes. You know what I mean? Like, so people are going to go into the stuff blind and probably not realize what's happening. And I think a lot of matchups are going to change.
I think like Fiora was already taking this. I mean, that's not surprising, but yeah, I think that a lot of auto attack heavy top laners are going to be the first ones to take it, and then there might be like some AD carries who start, because like you're like getting that extra 2 seconds to be like, you don't have to worry about those stacks falling off as much in a late game team fight. You could walk out of combat for like 8 seconds is so long in a team fight just in general. But like,
it's also weird when you consider that they otherwise nerfed the damage coming out of Masteries. But this, I mean, it's a buff for the duration and everything, but you, in the context that Todd just described, like they basically increased the damage that's coming out of this specific Mastery, whereas they nerfed it everywhere across the, nerfed across the board everywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's because of the AD carry complaints in recent patches, honestly. I think this is directed at being a buff to them, but I think there's too many characters who utilize it effectively.
And I think they're not going to use it.
No, they won't use it, because you're only getting one stack. It takes you 8 seconds to get the full amount out of Fervor of Battle, and in that time you could be regenerating more life than the damage that you're outputting. potentially saving you inside of a team fight. So if it takes you 8 seconds to get that full stack, it's not until the 9th second that you get the full amount of AD.
Wait, why would it take that long to stack it?
Because ranged champions only gain 1 stack per basic attack.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, like in lane, sure, but like later on in the game when you're attacking really fast.
But that's the point. Like that's what he's talking about. Is during laning is when you're going
sorry.
to.
I was.
You're going to feel the difference between Bloodlust and Fervor.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sorry.
I mean, they did nerf Bloodlust at the same time, hoping that would change people's minds about it. So
you need to give.
But I don't know. I mean, 15% is still a lot.
Well, it's 2 stacks on abilities. Was I think the main thing.
No, it's only basic attacks. Only basic.
No, I'm
attacks.
saying that's what I'm saying is you were saying you want the 2 stacks back. Like that would be like if abilities came back as applying it, which is
sure. But then Lucian and Ezreal.
And then we're going back.
Again, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Lucian definitely comes back with this change, I think.
Yeah.
He's already teetering. We just need some other changes in the game to bring him back.
He might benefit from some of the other stuff that happened here.
Well, you mean
hey, so let's move on to the board. Masteries. Holy crap! Yeah, I mean, it's nerfs to all masteries.
So cunning under the cunning tree, the merciless mastery has been changed. That against champions below 40% life, you were dealing 1% bonus damage per rank up to 5%. You are now dealing 0.6 up to 3%. So it's a 2% nerf.
Hey, same as every other percentage thing that we've essentially seen.
Except Bounty Hunter.
Except I know we're gonna.
Right.
I know.
Meditation, you're gaining less mana. You were previously gaining 1.5% max mana. You're now gaining 1.25% over or every 5 seconds.
Yeah, missing mana every 5 seconds.
And they explained this was just because it's in the same tree as Merciless, and they didn't want everyone to just default to this mastery because the other one got nerfed. Which
is like such ironic given the next change. But I don't know how
that meditation change is so negligible for the champions that are already using it.
Right. Precision would be the next one, but that's down another tree or another level. The lethality per rank has gone to 1.2 with a max of 6. It was a max of 8.5. The flat magic penetration has been decreased by half down to 1.5. And the scaling magic penetration has also been decreased to 0.25 times your level from 0.3 times your level. Actually, it's bigger than that, or there's more to it than that because it works like lethality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lethality has like a weird scaling effects too, so it's actually
you don't need a there wasn't a change to the scaling portion of lethality because it already scales. Like that went away when they changed the lethality.
No, he means the scaling per level, I think.
The easiest way to look at this, rather than all the how much it's been changed per rank, is that if you put your maximum points in it, you were previously getting 8.5 lethality and 8.4 magic penetration. You're now only getting 6 of each.
Yep.
So trying to just straight nerfs across the board on all masteries, which I don't.
I mean, and the weird part, like that's kind of that affects Thunderlords for everybody except for the support users in a lot of cases, since many supports were taking intelligence instead. I mean, otherwise, Thunderlord ended up taking a big hit there, and it was already kind of losing a lot of. I mean, I don't know. It's always hard to tell if that mastery is popular or not because we spend so much time talking about everything else.
What, intelligence or precision?
Thunderlords.
Oh, Thunderlords. Yeah. So I mean, intelligence is an interesting mastery to me because it unlocked the 40% CDR block that had always been on the game, and like some champions that could get that 45% hit a specific break point that had never happened before, and so suddenly they got a lot stronger. But like I don't know how you would nerf that now. Like I don't know how you would possibly nerf that CDR when it's like such a simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what you get. It increases that cap.
But they needs to be nerfed. Like,
well, they nerfed lethality this patch too. They nerfed the lethality items, and so it makes sense to also nerf the the mastery. It did. They took away lethality from a few of the
lethality. I mean, they nerfed
can't
how much
nerf
lethality you get,
or it's gone. If they nerf all the items, it's just gone all of a sudden.
The big problems with all these changes. I mean, okay, you open up some people to take battle trance and shit, right? But like you are ADC in 2017, that meme that is rolling around, is becoming even more relevant with these changes because you are removing 2% damage from Merciless and 5% lifesteal that you're gaining, not to mention any additional damage you were getting from Bounty Hunter, Double-Edged Sword, and Battle Trance. So ADCs, marksmen, are getting just hurt even more by this. And again, none of the bonuses that these tanks are getting have been changed from how cheap their items are. So even more we are leaning toward the Ashe, Jhin, and Varus than we ever were previously.
And
I
beyond
think
that,
the damage bonuses kind of affect everybody on like a mostly flat scale, though. I mean, and the fervor bonus can't be overstated. I mean, that might not be good for every AD carry, but I think that is going to be very strong on the few that are good with it.
Yeah, I think that. Good. Sorry, go ahead, Dom.
They touched one of the tank masteries in Fearless, but I said before the season even started, when we saw all these changes, there are so many free resistances available basically to tanks and everything just through the mastery tree that they were going to become a problem, and lo and behold, they did. Now, granted, it was Courage of the Colossus being so just overwhelmingly powerful that really propelled them to the forefront, but that thing's been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, and we still see a lot of tanks being played. And it's because there's just a silly number of free resistances available, and aside from Fearless, those by and large weren't touched this patch, yet damage was getting nerfed everywhere else. Don't get me wrong, I'm a support player, I'm not complaining. Everybody else being unable to deal as much damage as they used to means I'm going to stay alive a little bit longer.
Well, let's get to the Last Whisper change before we say that tanks are busted this patch, because I think that is the answer to everything.
I think that there's actually a little bit, and Pone, I know that you're mad, or sad, I should say, that the damage is coming away. I actually think that this might be a kind of hidden buff to the AD carries, not because they're going to do more damage, but instead because with lethality coming away a little bit, lethality and just free damage coming away, you're taking away two of the things that you're taking away free damage from tanks that you hate to deal with, that jump on top of you, and you're taking away lethality from champions that come just jump on you and burst you. I think that it's just going to mean that fights will last longer, which benefits AD carries pretty much always.
I mean, that's true.
That's when they shine.
A lower potential cap for lethality does help them, since they have the lowest base armor in the game.
It does. It does, but you're assuming that players are actually protecting their AD carries and playing around what their AD carries can do and allowing them to play, and we know that's not true. The majority of players are playing for themselves and play,
then nothing's going to change ever unless those people start playing better.
Right.
What are you talking about patches for?
Most players are going to continue to play. If we're talking purely solo queue, you're just purely making AD carries worse and walking into... If we want to talk about, Last Whisper, right? I agree with you. Last Whisper, I'll just put it out there. The build path was pickaxe plus 425 gold, is now longsword plus 950 gold. So you don't have to buy that pickaxe and then get some of that extra. You can just, you can buy it potentially earlier. The bonus armor penetration has gone up to 45%, but the attack damage has gone down to 10. And that's great, but you're still buying that third item no matter what. So you still have to buy your two big items before you get to Last Whisper as a marksman. So you still have to make it to 25 to 30 minutes in the game and hope that you have picked up a kill or two at any point in time. It's hard as an AD carry right now, having to buy such expensive items to build into a Last Whisper. That's why they started turning into Yumu's Ghost Blade and Edge of Night and all these other smaller, cheaper, high damage items, because it was easier for you to purchase and do the damage when you needed to do it, rather than wait to turn on it for 30 minutes into the game.
I don't necessarily disagree with any of that, other than the fact that I think that it is true that it's still going to take a while to get to that Last Whisper, but that 25-minute spike is going to be a lot more relevant against his tanks now than it was before. But that's kind of always been the intent for the role, is to be a scaling role. So I don't necessarily see that as a problem. But if they don't scale hard enough by a certain point, that's the issue. So I think the Last Whisper change will help a lot.
I think it's huge just because that item previously felt bad to buy. Mm-hmm. You bought it and you felt like you weren't getting anything out of it, but then you had to sit and wait until you could upgrade it to the one that actually gave you meaningful bonus armor penetration. 30%, 45% that's a lot and everything, and 30% should be a lot, but it's one of those things that it never felt like it was really that much, which is why it was often being delayed until a fourth or fifth item.
Well, it's also like you used to have the old Last Whisper did like okay, there were a lot of iterations of Last Whisper because I think I just remembered one that had attack speed and armor penetration. I think way back in the day, but for a while wasn't it just like it was just armor penetration, and now you've kind of you kind of went with a 25 damage, 30% was like, well, you're not really focusing on what you're supposed to be doing with this. Now it's
not
now
enough
it's
pen,
tank
it's
busting.
not enough AD.
It's not enough AD, and it's not enough armor penetration, and now you're like, we should focus on the thing that it's supposed to do, and it's get rid of bonus armor, and like that 45% is a ton. Like,
I think with the master you're gonna hit like 50 now, like a flat 50% bonus armor pen. If you have the fervor, not the warlord, or what is it called, the 7% penetration.
Savagery,
master?
maybe.
Yeah, whatever.
It's 7% just straight armor penetration, isn't it? It's not even bonus.
Yeah,
it might as well be like 50% bonus at that point. Or even more. It's actually more than that then. That's cool.
Multiplicatively, don't they? So it'll end up being like it'll end up reading like 50%, I think, and your stat bar at the bottom if you have Last Whisper.
It's weird. I don't know if you have. They can't possibly like have a stat for armor penetration and then bonus armor penetration without like some. I mean, they'll calculate it, right? It'll look weird. But yeah, I think that's great. I assume that this isn't shown. I don't think down there was Lord Dominic's. Was that already 45% armor penetration?
Both Lord Dominic's and Mortal Reminder were already 45,
okay.
So they didn't change the value on those. You just get it now by buying Last Whisper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
right.
So hopefully you can buy situationally. I mean, I actually think this is good for top laners who are damage focused, who have to lane against tanks. You can start with a longsword a lot of the time top lane. So like if I'm playing Garen in the future against like a super tank like Not or Poppy or somebody like that, or Malphite, just like a super heavy armor heavy tank, I might end up getting an early Last Whisper because it'll just be more effective than anything else I can buy for the same cost against those characters.
I mean, especially I guess the comparable for top lane then is Black Cleaver, which just underwent some changes.
Yeah, they nerfed the damage and buffed the health. They're trying to take it out of the hands of AD carries and assassins a little bit by reducing.
Are you looking at Last Whisper items now instead of Black Cleaver, or is the CDR still too much to pass up?
I guess it depends what champion I'm playing. The Cleaver change is probably really good for. I think the Cleaver change is a nerf to any bruiser who was getting Cleaver and then the rest tank items. I think only having 40 AD is gonna like really hurt. But if you were building maybe a second damage item like Maw of Malmortius, then I don't think this is really gonna change much for those characters, really.
So Ghostblade as well has had a nerf, lethality down by 5 from 20 to 5. I'm assuming
20 to 15.
20 to 15. I'm sorry.
Oh
yes,
boy, I was like, jeez. It's like we're gonna give you a tiny bit of lethality here on this side.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean
that's not really the problem item right now.
No, it's not.
Edge of Night is the problem item.
Yes.
I think they did this just because it was cheaper, but it gave the most lethality.
And it was just a first buy on everybody. Like you were getting so much from it on the first buy.
Now you can choose between the three based on what you think the item itself will do for you, other than what has the most lethality.
Lord Dominic's has had a pretty significant change as well with the passive. It now deals 100 maximum health difference against targets with greater max health than you, up to 15%. The maximum bonus threshold is 1,000 max health difference from 500. So meaning if you're an AD carry going into a tank and you have the Lord Dominic's, you're doing more damage. Though I still think Mortal Reminder generally is the de facto item to purchase just because of Executioner calling power to reduce the amount of healing received.
Except this is a nerf. This is not a buff.
Did I not read that correctly?
It's deal plus 1.5% physical damage. That was always the case. It used to be per 50 health they had more than you. Now it's per 100 health they have more than you. So instead of them having 500 health more than you and you dealing 15% extra damage, now they need 1,000 health difference, which is still attainable, but it takes longer for that tank to get there.
I don't even know like they say that they're concerned about making LDR, that Lord Dominik's and Cleaver, from becoming like the big combo, which I think is interesting, because not only did the change to to Black Cleaver this patch gave you more health on Cleaver, which effectively makes Lord Dominik's worse when you have it, because you have 100 more health. That's a 1.5% physical damage that you're losing if you were lower health already. I don't know what the change was here, really. I guess the way that they're saying is that they don't want you to be able to itemize for both enemy health and enemy armor by getting both of these items. But like, it's not like this is going to give you a crazy amount of damage against like a single target. I feel like, I think it's not going to. It might be okay against tanks as a duo of items, but I can't think of a champion that buys both and is like, hell yes, I am kicking ass with these two.
Well, I think that's their point, right? I think that's what they wanted to accomplish. I don't think they want characters who would build Lord Dominik's to build Cleaver. I think they want two different classes building two different types of penetration items.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm recalling correctly, it seemed like this was, I think this was targeted a little bit more at top lane, where somebody who wanted one of the items, it wasn't really given an option one way or the other, and now there's actually calculated decisions that they should be making. This one doesn't feel like it's really as targeted towards AD carries, who are often going to fall under that 1,000 or into that 1,000 max health difference if they really want the Giant Slayer.
Well, the difference is, though, like, if they're saying now, like, if they said like a patch, all right, let's reverse the Black Cleaver change. Let's say they reduced the health by 100, increased damage by 10, and then they said we're nerfing it to change how the health interacts with Lord Dominik's. It would kind of make sense, because then they're saying the change to Black Cleaver benefits Lord Dominik's. It's the opposite here. Like, you're getting more health, which makes Lord Dominik's worse for those same champions that are buying Black Cleaver, but then we're going to nerf Lord Dominik's as well on top of it. That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why are they doing it this patch instead of like before? Because I haven't seen that item built that much.
Because Skarzard left Riot, and they no longer have somebody to actually make good patch notes.
That makes so little sense to me in terms of like.
It doesn't have to make
the same
sense,
patch
but it's the
truth.
truth.
Beyond that, to me, it's like it still seems like Mortal Reminder is the way to go, because there's just so much ambient healing in the game that, like, you need to do something about that. That's why you're going for Mortal Reminder and everything. Even if that plus 15% damage against one target is really appealing to you, odds are good that target's also going to be getting healed through in some way or another.
Healing themselves.
And so this is even more pushing people towards Mortal Reminder. Like, they're saying, hey guys, there's a correct build path here. We're going to show you the way. Here it is.
Well, let's talk about champion changes, because we have some shit to still get through, and about 20 minutes left in the podcast to get through it. Interesting change out of top lane with Cho'Gath, the Feast. You no longer lose stacks on death, and you can now stack infinitely. But you can only gain 5 stacks from minions and non-epic monsters, but they don't have to be the first 5 stacks total.
Was Sean a big Cho'Gath player ever?
Nah, he just likes a champion.
I have a friend who actually did play a lot of Cho'Gath and everything, and I think he'll probably end up being pissed about the ability power changes, which we haven't gotten to. But I don't know. This is amusing at the very least.
Yeah. So the way it works now is it no longer heals Cho'Gath when it kills a unit in max stacks, meaning there's no longer that max stack, so you can't just, get some extra power out of the ability. You no longer get 2 stacks from a champion kill. You only get 1. And it no longer refunds half the mana cost and cooldown on a minion kill, so you can't stack it up really fast out of top lane anymore, which I remember that being a pretty significant change for Cho'Gath, and it was one of the reasons he was led into the jungle pretty early on in, like, Season 4, maybe? I want to say that's what it was, Season 3, Season 4?
Sure.
Yeah. The ability power ratio has gone down to 0.5 ability power and 10% of the bonus health.
So that's like up a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Like that's actually very helpful, because the 10% bonus health didn't exist before. That is brand new.
Right. Bonus health per stack has been decreased. Again, a lot of these being decreased because you can potentially infinitely stack the ability. Bonus health per stack was 100 to 180, is now 80 to 140. Bonus health at 6 stacks was 600 to 1080. It is now 480 to 840. Maximum attack range bonus is up 75. So it was, you got you got a max attack range bonus of 175 before you have 200. And Cho'Gath reaches his maximum size at 10 stacks. So big, old, fat Cho'Gath.
Todd,
I mean, these changes more than anything else.
What's up?
we talked about an item on the Garen podcast that I know we would love to have right now if Cho'Gath was with this Cho'Gath. We get some Abba's and Paler in there.
Nature would be pretty.
Well, I was thinking Abba's and Paler, infinitely scaling health with an item that gives you AD based on max health.
That one would actually be pretty good too. He would be the ultimate bruiser. I would go PD.
I mean, granted, Scion still stacks infinitely with health, but it's not as fast. Or maybe it's kind of weird to tell. This is cool though. Like this is Cho'Gath's, I think, main issue for a long time. Like he came back into consideration when he wasn't if he can be unkillable, great. You keep your stacks. Same thing with Mejai's. But if you die, you have to wait so long to get back to that point that you were just at. Now while they are nerfing the amount that you can get per stack, you keep them all the time. You can get 5 stacks pretty easily just based on minions or jungle monsters. And then you have more incentive to go nom the shit out of dragon. You get a permanent stack beyond that 5 immediately. That's pretty cool.
All these changes say to me is Riot saying, hey, we didn't forget this champion is in the game. Here are some changes.
Right. That's pretty much what it is.
That's what this is.
Let's talk about Maokai because he's been a pretty significant champion at the top lane for a while now. Arcane Smash, the mana cost has been increased. It was 45 mana at all ranks, and now 45 to 65 mana, which is a pretty significant change. That's just in general. Change.
I can't believe that it took them, almost 2 seasons really to make that change.
Well, for an item
because they changed his ult to be an AoE around him in season 5
instead of placing it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have said that ability is an almost always max because you were able to deal so much. You got damage, a significant amount of damage per level. You got wave clear. You got dueling power, and it stayed at 45 mana the whole time. Now that you have a mana cost increase on it, I think that makes a ton of sense because it was just way too easy for him to just spam that and get way too much out of it. Now you have to be a bit more strategic.
Yeah, it was a lot of you could disengage with Maokai really easily from bad trades. And because the mana cost was so low, you could do it super often. If you were playing anybody who didn't have a hard CC, it was really difficult to get a favorable trade-off against Maokai.
Right. So interesting enough, sapling toss. Saplings no longer deal damage when they land, so that is a pretty significant nerf to the amount of damage. I mean, it's not significant, maybe significant from levels 1 to 4 or 1 to 6.
Trading.
Right?
Lane trading damage gets hurt
because you weren't
this.
putting points into it, but still.
Yeah, you only put 1 point in.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still you just lose 60 damage.
It's a big
40.
It's a huge buff to the Garen versus Maokai matchup.
It seems up to every
because it won't disable your passive anymore if he just throws it at you, and that's all he does.
It's this weird hit to jungle Maokai.
It is.
Not that you see a lot of that and everything, but I know there still are jungle Maokai players out there, and it just sort of I guess that's what bums me out about this and everything is it makes it harder to play him in that in that specific role, and
yeah, you know what these are? These are changes coming in for the mid-season update where we see some changes to the kit. Then you realize, oh, well, I've been groomed to not have that extra damage on E, and they've changed the way E works now, so I'm no longer throwing a sapling or something, right? That's what that.
I mean, he's coming up. He's one of the tanks that's coming up on the update.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. They just posted a thing about him today. They want to make him more engaging to play and whatnot. And I'm sure that what they're doing is just grooming you for a new E to come in where they're no longer tossing a sapling or a sapling gets tossed.
Or he grows a tree instead.
That'd be great.
He grows a tree villager style from Super Smash Bros. And you can chop it down to deal damage on the people.
So Kled can now correctly dash through player created terrain with the second cast of E Joust.
There you go, Punch.
Great.
Cool.
Cassiopeia. So this is an interesting one if you've watched Reddit at all. Cassiopeia could cast R behind her, flash, and get the stun in the direction that her mouse cursor was as she was flashing, so that you could make it look like you weren't going to Petrifying Gaze them. They have removed that ability to be tricky with Petrifying Gaze, essentially.
I think that's good, honestly. I think that's how it's intended to be.
Right. So that all those crazy faker plays and shit you saw before, they've removed.
It's a nerf to scripters.
That's true. Katarina, base magic resistance down to 32. Big fucking deal. Fix her.
They literally said they accidentally gave her too much magic resistance.
And literally too much. It was 2 more than they meant to.
This doesn't change anything to Katarina. Keep playing her. They need to fix her Q, the indicator, before anything else happens. I 100% agree with Santana from a few patches or the last patch. That is the problem with Katarina right now. So,
I wish you could like kill her dagger when it landed.
Yeah, I wish I could step on it or something.
Just pick it up and throw it back.
Reduce the damage. Rise, E, spell flux. Q bonus damage versus flux applied targets has been decreased. It was 40 to 100%, is now 40 to 80%. So you're losing 5, 10,
shit.
15, 20 damage, which this affects is wave clear.
No, 5, 10, that's 5, 10, 15, 20% damage.
Right.
Like that's a lot. And his wave clear gets hurt because you were able to apply spell flux to everything with essentially a second application of E onto any target. So yeah, that's actually going to be pretty interesting to see how difficult it is to wave clear. But he already did too much stuff, so I'm fine with this change. Given I've played him that one time and it didn't go great, guys.
I'm glad you understood everything that was going on with Rise and everything. I've played him a few times and I was like get into a groove and figure it out. But if you asked me to explain how everything was working, I'd be like, I don't know. I can't answer that, man.
Yeah.
Well, Corky, so they are taking Corky
no.
out of the mid lane.
No.
They're trying to. So the way this works now is it's all in his R. So the normal missile damage now it has been decreased. It was 100 to 160. It is now 75 to 125, meaning when he was powerful, he's actually still powerful because it was like levels 1 to like 12, 13. He was doing significant amounts of damage. I'm sorry, hold on.
What they took away, they took away the free damage he gets. He gets just like so much ability to like not only deal damage with his ultimate once he has stacks, which is not difficult to get once you have your ultimate, but also just you get so much free damage anyways from Sheen and Trinity Force procs with the ultimate, which is on the cooldown that matches up with the Sheen / Trinity Force. They nerfed the base damage, they nerfed the ratios, they nerfed the shit out of his ultimate, except for the big ones.
Sort of though, because what they did is they took all the damage that they removed from his basic normal missiles and they put it all into the big one, because the big one does a fuck ton more damage now.
They took a little bit of the damage and put it into the big one.
Right.
It does barely more damage than it was doing.
Yeah.
It's doing 10 more damage.
Yeah.
What?
So earlier and this is I think what you're thinking of, Pone, because I saw this patch and I was like, wait, that doesn't seem like what we'd been seeing. On the PBE stuff that had been happening was there were much harder hits to his like normal missiles, base damages, ratios, etc. But then they put a lot, like they actually went from, I think it was you used to get 50% bonus damage on your big one, you were going to 150% bonus damage on the big one. They scaled that back on both accounts. They took less away and gave a lot less to the big one to compensate. I think that's probably better, even though it does slightly reward. It would have rewarded Corky's for hitting a big one at the right time. Like you'd get just so much more damage, but it would have meant the small ones might have been kind of just little tickles.
I mean, with nerfs to his ability power across the board, and then at least the big one total AD ratio not changing, is he out of mid lane and back in bot lane?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely.
I do like the last change that we haven't covered.
The number of missiles Corky has stored is now shown in his secondary resource bar. The resource bar turns red when the next missile is the big one. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. We need that.
Yeah,
that's honestly for opponents. It's not for the Corky players. Like you kind of know when you have a big one coming.
Yeah,
like you kind of keep up. It's not difficult. You Jin players count to 4. We only have to count to 3. It's pretty easy. This is really just to help other people.
It's good for me because I never paid attention. I'm like, oh, I got a big one. That's great.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of
Jhin curtain call slow duration has been decreased by 0.5 seconds.
Thank fuck.
Yeah, oh my god.
I'm mad
Oh
about
my
this.
God.
I'm really mad. I hate this. False news. This is awful.
Yeah, I think this one's a big nerf, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
It's not. It's not a significant nerf. It's just.
Oh my god, it means you might be able to dodge a goddamn bullet if you get hit by one.
That's pretty much all it is. You just got to be better at aiming your bullets. This isn't like doesn't put Jhin out of playability.
That's a big nerf. You used to land one and the rest were guaranteed. Now you land one and you still might not get it all now.
Your rest are guaranteed. If you don't land the rest, you're fucking terrible at Jhin and you shouldn't be playing it.
What's the I'm trying to find like a number for how long you have to take in between shots. I'm gonna guess 1 second.
It's about 1 second.
It would make sense. Like I don't know why you can't fire it like a meat like that 0.75. I don't think.
No,
but,
it's
okay.
about a second between shots.
Okay.
So Bard
I'm fine with
passive
this.
Traveler's Call bonus movement speed has been increased to 24% plus 14% for each chime beyond the first, so he moves more quickly to pick up his charms and get back to lane.
Hooray.
Sweet.
Great,
I think-
awesome. Right? Go ahead.
Game changing. No, there's nothing. There's nothing here.
Knight's
Sorry,
Vow.
It
Sorry,
makes-
it's always going to be a really good competitive champion and a lot less good in solo queue in most players' hands.
So Knight's Vow got an interesting change here, is that the build path is now Crystalline Bracer plus Chain Vest plus 850 gold. Previously, it was 2 Crystalline Bracers and Cloth Armor. Jesus Christ. The armor that you get is 40, and however, when you link with somebody, you only get 20 now. So they gave you more armor up front and less when you link with somebody. But you still have the same amount overall.
Great buff because you just you're getting
Your
just
target is getting less armor now too, right?
Your target never got armor.
never got
Your
armor. It's
target
just
never
you.
got armor?
Yeah, so that's
That would
why.
be. Oh god, if you could give somebody 40 armor,
I
this
thought
this
that's
item
how-
would have been broken for so
No,
long.
the item never. It was just if you were around the linked person, you got more armor, you got some movement speed, they get some damage reduction, they life steal, but for you.
So basically, no downside to this change at all. It's just a straight
Yes.
buff to the item.
Yeah. Well, and the big thing, and they touched on it in the description, but the big thing is going from 3 components down to 2, because supports are usually at a premium with respect to their inventory slots. So now instead of like you were always just going to be sitting on a crystalline bracer, if you were trying to even itemize or step item your way to this. Now you can choose between a crystalline bracer or the chain vest, depending on the type of matchups you're going into. And then also, supports spend a decent amount of time wandering around by themselves, and that little bit of extra armor can, really make a big difference if you run into somebody you didn't want to run into.
Yeah, it was giving you too much. Like I understand that you're incentivized to be around your target, but when you're getting 2/3 of the armor from being around them at an item that costs you 2,300 gold, like I think it makes way more sense to flip that and put the 2/3 up front and a third for being around your target.
Doesn't this incentivize Nautilus or Maokai to purchase this item now because you're gaining more armor up front and you have more armor while you're in the thick of the battle? I mean, they were already purchasing it previously.
Were they? I don't think they were.
Yeah,
Well,
some were.
as a support
No,
maybe, but like
top lanes
I
were purchasing Knight's Vow for the
I saw
Maokai stuff. It was
zero
more of a
listings.
pro play thing, not a solo queue thing.
Oh.
It's very cheap too. I could see junglers picking
It's
this
cheap
up
armor.
and like picking a lane that they want to gank regularly, and then using it on that person.
Right.
I think it at least makes it a lot more attractive. I maybe saw this item in our games like once, and it might have been when it came out.
If you're not a pro player, you're not really seeing this game or this item, right? But this is kind of one of those where I'm a tanky top lane Nautilus Maokai, and I'm picking it up to assist my team to become even more tankier. And when you have 2 dive buddies, like you have a Kha'Zix and you're handing the Kha'Zix some extra stats, then more power to you.
I will note that, like, I've tried to buy this item a lot of different times just because I like playing around with it. I like the idea behind it, even if it isn't as effective as I wanted it to be. I will note that Sean on Varying Divers always appreciated this item a whole lot more than you ever did, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know.
So no, that wasn't a shot. That was just saying, like, the types of champions that like supports should actually think about giving this or using this on are the divers.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah, don't give it to
giving-
me as an AD carry. It just doesn't work like you would think it would.
giving them that amount of damage reduction. What is it? 12? Yeah, 12% damage reduction. You take that instead of them. Ends up being a really, really big deal for that type of champion.
Right.
Well, we were concerned with interested in originally the 12% that you got back. And you said, oh, we want a champion that deals a lot of damage. Let's give it to the 80 carry. So then you, as the person with Knight's Vow, heals up a bunch. Now, it does make sense, though, with the Diver, giving them the 12%, and then they still usually deal a good bit of damage. Like, they will heal you up, too.
Oh, yeah, someone like Jax, Camille, Fiora, Aatrox, Kha'Zix.
Hey, new Aatrox coming out, guys.
Aatrox.
Those changes actually look really cool.
Right. Well,
Did you see those changes? They look really
they
cool.
do. No, I agree with you. It's just it's a right as in let's get to the last two items here because we're pushing the hour mark. We have two more pieces here to talk about. Trap revealing items. Primarily Wukong, if he had the trap revealing item, if he uses his clone, he no longer gets a free ward reveal. Like you can't abuse those items anymore.
No, that's not the only.
The Dustblade of Drakthar is there was a bug fix with Wukong where you can't do that.
Yeah, but there's otherwise still a big change here that you're like kind of glossing over. So
they don't disable traps anymore.
Yeah, they reveal traps, and they still disable wards.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I mean that's probably. I mean, I realize why it's great, but
sure. No, I'm just saying like you completely skipped that over to the bug fix.
I understand that.
So they did two things to this too, and one thing that I remember from days of trying to disable Teemo streams was the issue of melee champions walking into them. Right. So not only now like. Before you were like, oh, now that they disable traps, we don't have to worry about it. We just walk onto them and hit them. They also, in addition to now not doing that, they don't disable these traps. They did increase the range for melee targets to be able to hit these traps. So so don't be scared if you were a melee person saw this and were like, oh shit, I'm just going to run into traps now while I'm trying to disable them. It's a bit easier for you now too.
I like this next change a whole lot.
I do too.
I'm really happy about this.
So wards now grant full gold to both the player who revealed them and the player who killed them. But the bonus doesn't stack if the revealer also kills the ward.
Hey, friend, come on up to the river with me so you can miss these minions but get full gold with me from this ward.
That is not it at all. Like the number of times I have freaking spent my charge trying to get the goddamn gold for something and then somebody else and I'm not mad about it, but it's just one of those just more support getting screwed out of the gold and doing the work.
I don't have to feel bad about screwing people out of wards now because I got pretty good with that auto attack reset on Garen. I'd be like, oh, 3 auto attacks? Well, I'll let them do 1 and then it's mine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I let Dom hit it twice, and I'll take the last one just to get the gold.
I know all you guys are doing this, but I can't. Like, if I don't auto attack it, then you guys aren't going to do your attacks, and then we won't kill the goddamn.
Exactly. I want the gold. This is just like minions in lane. You're helping me. Give me the gold.
Sometimes I'll attack it once to bait the support into thinking that I'm helping.
Yeah, I know what you all are doing. You're not sneaky.
Dom, the only time that I leave that word for you is when I want to get to the next location fast. So I'll just shoot it once and keep walking. And I'm like, here's your measly gold, peasant.
Thank you for the pity ward. Thank you.
I think it's interesting the control wards don't trigger this. Like you don't get the quote unquote revealed action, I guess, from a control ward finding something. So that's interesting.
I worry.
It's because it's in control, man.
Yeah. You should get all the gold.
I think that just means like because they are visible.
No. Sorry, I misread that. Yep, you're correct. You would get the revealed bonus. It's just that control wards and farsight wards that everyone can always see you can't get revealed. Like I walked in the brush, but somebody else got the kill on it. Therefore, I revealed it.
Yeah.
Listen, this podcast has been fantastic. But I have to use the bathroom, so I'm just gonna end it here before anything.
Or he pees on his microphone.
That's right. Before I pee into a cup.
Were you gonna read these reviews, these nice reviews that we got, or
yeah,
are you
sure,
just
I'll read them. No,
all right.
Listen, I gotta pee, man, but I'll read reviews because I love our listeners.
This is great. I want to see how long I can delay this.
Yeah, it's all right. I can hardly read this because it's not.
You click on it to expand it.
Yeah, but it's just shit my way.
Then expand. Then maximize your Slack.
Not
Control
biased
plus.
enough, writes. Trinity Force podcast provides insight to League of Legends that I find thought-provoking and informative. Though because I'm a high-elo player, I don't learn much from this podcast in terms of gameplay or technique. I find their insight discussion helpful when deciding how or what to play in the upcoming patch changes. For newer players, this is a very helpful and insightful podcast. For all players, it's an enjoyable discussion between knowledgeable players. Well, not biased enough.
1 star.
5 stars. Thank you so much for leaving it. And you know what? It wouldn't be a Trinity Force review without a little bit of a backhanding in the middle of it. But then also,
I don't get much
you know
out
what
of
this
it.
is? No, this is a compliment sandwich.
It is
this
a
is a
compliment
Declan
sandwich.
compliment sandwich.
It's a compliment sandwich.
Because he's like, this is a great podcast. I don't learn much, but this is a great podcast for everybody. You know what? I'm on to you. Not biased. Fucking on to you, dude.
Yeah, just wait till his follow-up review when he's like, I rescind everything I said. This is just gonna be me taking dump on you guys. This is what you were wrong about. Bye.
No, whatever. So, Flash Air writes, I've been listening and participating for the past year or so within the T-Force network, and it's been useful information to help me improve since I did in nearly a year man, you gotta use some fucking periods in these sentences. It's been useful information to help me improve. I did nearly a year or so with only bots and have been working toward norms and finally to rank this season with my 3 years of playing. But it's fun and I always enjoy the content from this and all podcasts.
All the other podcasts, I assume, in the network, not just all podcasts are good. I appreciate ear noise.
And hey, 212 writes, just an overall great podcast. The whole crew has great chemistry and always has me laughing when they go off on random tangent. Useful information on patches and gameplay. Look forward to being a regular listener. You know what? We look forward to listening.
You don't know where you're going.
Giving
Nope,
you
not
something
you.
to listen to.
Thank you.
I'm confused. I'm
Boom.
confused when somebody says always has me laughing. I'm looking forward to being a regular listener. I'm like, wait, what were you? What are you now?
He was
Sounds
the
like you
irregular
already
listener.
are.
Don't.
No, I'm
be
happy.
me.
Why are you
Don't
badgering
be
the
me.
people?
I am an editor, and I don't even like people that do what you just did.
Sorry.
You're
this
one
is-
of those
this is-
people, Mitch. Don't be
I'm a
one of
grammar
those.
person. I'm a grammar person. You know this.
So, guys, if you want to leave a review for us, you want to leave a funny, informative, or whatever it may be review, you can do it on iTunes, and we'll read it for you. I'm not reading Stitcher reviews just because I forget to go read them. But, hey, if you leave a Stitcher review, email me and tell me, and I will go look at it because I honestly forget that Stitcher exists until somebody tells me to go look at it.
I really appreciated that.
So honesty is the best policy, and there it is. I forget Stitcher exists, therefore I do not read the reviews on Stitcher. I read them on iTunes. Please go leave us a review. You know what, guys? That's it. I have to use the bathroom, and we're 10 minutes over time, and I want to play a game tonight before I go to bed. So I am going to go do that. You guys are going to enjoy listening to our episode that comes out next week and whatever else because you enjoy the Trinity Force Network. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you all on Monday. Peace.
Goodbye.